What's up, everyone? We are here fired up on a gingerbread latte and a dream, baby. I hope you are ready for a great and educational
Time.
time. There we go. My time, your time, Jesse's
You know,
time. Here
we
we go.
finished we finished each other's.
Sandwiches.
That's
That's
what
what
I
I
was
was gonna
gonna say.
say.
Today we are talking all about motivation because this is one of the biggest struggles that we see therapists having. Therapists constantly say this kid is not motivated to be here. We don't know what to do. We know that a lot of systems are still built on rewards, but we also know that intrinsic motivation really is the key to learning, developing relationships, communication, and all of the good stuff. So that is what you are going to be getting to hear about tonight.
That's right. We have some good stories along the way that we're going to tie in, and you are really going to see how we'll bring this all around together with how we work with our kids.
That's
Yeah, it
right.
works out.
All right. Well, let's jump into it. So today we are going to be talking about why using reward systems is hurting your sessions, but don't hate us because we know that sometimes it's easier to use reward systems, but really I like to think of it as something that maybe works in the short term, but really hurts you in the long term. So what we're going to be teaching you tonight is going to be a lot more effective in the long term. We're also going to be showing you this really cool motivation continuum for you to think about how can you get your kids to be more intrinsically motivated. And we are introducing you to something new we created, which is called the NeuroAffirm Motivation Map, which is going to be your guide to making every session motivating. If you follow these principles, you can take any kid who I like to say is seemingly unmotivated, because a lot of times might just be motivated by something other than what you want them to be motivated by. But you can take any kid from this place where you feel like nothing works other than rewards to being able to build on their intrinsic motivation. And we also have really fun couple of announcements coming at the very end.
Confetti. Confetti, please.
Cue it.
Cue it. Here we go. We're Jesse and Chris. That's Jesse. I'm Chris.
In case you don't know us, we are founders of all things NeuroAffirm. We have the NeuroAffirm Academy where we train therapists. We have the NeuroAffirm Directory where neuroaffirming therapists can be found by other therapists and families. And we are also best-selling authors and international speakers. So we love getting to spread neuroaffirming tips all over the world. And these are our 5 boys, ages 10 months to 9 years. So our entire life is about regulation, staying regulated at work, and then going home and staying regulated.
That's our whole life. It's interesting. I haven't really shared this with anybody, and I haven't shared this with Jesse, but
Ooh,
our field of speech pathology doesn't have all too many men in the field. So I've been training all 5 boys for their future on being an SLP as well. And
waiting in the Asha bathroom lines.
so the whole family will be SLPs because Jesse is I am, and then the 5 boys in the future, baby, and then the grandkids.
It's all about how
Those
can we get them
grandkids.
intrinsically motivated to do it.
We're going to intrinsically motivate them. That's right.
So tonight we are going beyond the basic intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. We know that, there's a lot of great information out there these days, which is awesome on the difference between the two. But for a frame of reference, tonight we're talking about external motivation or extrinsic motivation, which is motivated by external rewards. So give them some examples of rewards. Candy,
Tokens,
iPad time,
iPad time, yeah.
any of the things, versus when a child or when a person is intrinsically motivated, they are inherently enjoying what that activity is. They are getting satisfaction from doing that activity without needing to be motivated to do that activity at all. So this is an author that we love, Alfie Kohn, and he wrote the book Punished by Rewards, and he talks about how this is a paraphrasing, by the way. And now that I'm saying it, it's coming to me, but he talks about how external rewards are not entirely ineffective. Under certain conditions, they can get one thing, and that one thing is temporary compliance. So we know that rewards work, meaning get kids to comply. And that's why it's so hard for people, for therapists, for parents to move away from them because oftentimes they are working. But shortly we're going to be talking about why they are creating more harm than they are helping you.
Yeah, and so I'm just going to briefly touch on this too. Just a couple key concepts. The words can be confusing, so I'll just elaborate on them a little bit. When we overuse rewards, so heavy use of reward system throughout the school day or throughout the child's life, there's a term called satiation. So what ends up happening is that the enthusiasm might be really high at the very beginning. The more and the more rewards and tokens and stickers we do, the enthusiasm fades for getting the thing done. Signaling is when we send unintended messages. You must do the thing. Our relationship, our connections based on conditions, which is I say this, you get the sticker or the reward, and it's just sending an unintended message that they're only worthy or valid of doing things or who they are if they perform. And that's what we are trying to stay away from is that heavy masking and suppression, right? And then choking, the pressure of earning rewards or being punished. So it's like you'll have a system in place where you have the thought that you must do X, Y, and Z to get the reward, and then you end up not being able to do it because there was so much pressure to do the thing. So that's referred to as choking, or the thought that if you don't do X, Y, and Z, you're going to get punished. So you end up in freeze mode, right? Your nervous system goes, shoot, now I've got all this pressure to get this many rewards to get the thing I need, and then you just shut down. And then the last one, Jesse can elaborate just a little bit on that one.
Yeah, and this Alfie Kohn talks a lot about too, which is this idea that having a reward system where one person gets to be the one who makes all the decisions, the other person just has to listen and do whatever that person says. It really creates a power differential. And when we are trying to build relationships with students, a lot of the times we want to be their play partner. We want them to trust us, and using a reward system continues this imbalance of power. And Alfie Kohn says that it almost feels like a form of conditional love. I will love you, or I will reward you if you do these things that I set forth for you. And the thing is with the reward systems, because you get into this conversation online, there's going to be some good conversation happening. And constantly what you hear is people say, but the goal is to eliminate or reduce the rewards. And I'm genuinely curious, Chris, because you have worked with so many kids in school. How often have you seen reward systems successfully faded out as they're intended to be?
Yeah, I mean, just from my experience, they tend to stay in place, right? And they don't go away. You don't tend to see them fade all too much.
Yeah, but we'd love to hear stories of people who maybe have seen them fade. But that's really the biggest thing I would say is anytime we talk about, we don't like using a reward system, someone will come back and say, but the goal is to fade the reward system. And then we would say, but how often does that actually happen? Do we actually see these reward systems being phased out?
You know what? And I wanted to touch on that point too. It's not always an all or nothing or an always never. So we do understand that there might be certain situations, but for the most part, we speak in general terms, the big picture being that usually we don't see those systems fade away.
Yeah, I would say unless something major changes and they maybe start to do some of the things that we're going to talk about tonight.
You know what you do see though, that I'm going to add, which what I wasn't, on the radar of me mentioning this, but it's funny because two things sometimes go hand in hand, which is systems like reward systems used over a long period of time end up creating so much stress that it's not all too uncommon to see a student that also has that reward system with a behavior plan, right? So it's like those things are synonymous. And it's funny because as we'll go through the presentation here and discuss things, once you can shift the mindset and the approach, then you can start to fade or eliminate those approaches with the rewards. And then it unilaterally starts to get those behavior plans dissipating. They start to fade away, right? So it's kind of funny how they work hand in
It's
hand.
like a BOGO.
Yes, it is a BOGO.
Yeah.
It's a BOGO.
So what we really want to think about here is what is our goal in therapy? Because when our goal is compliance, using compliance-based methods might help to get achieve that goal versus our goal being self-determination. Our goal is getting kids to be autonomous, getting kids to govern their own bodies, their own actions, being able to stand up for themselves, being able to empower them. So we just wanted to put these side by side so we could really think about the difference here because compliance really is driven by external forces, whereas self-determination has to come from within. And this is what we really want to aim for in our sessions with our kids. So this is the motivation continuum. It's based on research by Deci and Ryan from 1985, which is between our birth years.
That's right. I was born in 1995.
Yeah, 2000 for me. So this really shows how broad of a continuum there is between someone who has a motivation, meaning no motivation, lack of motivation, that person who is in that what's the point type of mentality. So in quotations here, I put the thought that would go along with that type of motivation or regulation on the continuum. So the first would be a child saying, "What's the point?" And this is actually a place where we can see kids, especially after they have had years of trauma, whether or not that was intentional trauma or not. We know that if kids have gone through really high compliance-based therapies, we might see them in this place, which is coming into a session and you're trying to engage them, you're trying to motivate them, but you just feel like nothing is motivating them. And that could be that they have this feeling of like, what is the point? I'm just not going to have any choice over what I'm going to do anyways. So next we have external motivation, which is that I have to feeling. So I have to make dinner for Jessie or else she's gonna yell at me.
That's right.
Anything that you or a child has to do. So like you have to do this worksheet before you can play on the iPad would fall under an external reward. When we look next at introjected, it's been a long day. That's where this idea comes in that you do something because you feel like you should. Okay. And tell us if you're here live with us in the chat. How many of you get an invitation to like a birthday party or an event and you're like, I don't really want to go, but like I'm going to go because I should go. And it's that guilt that comes along with not doing something. So you're almost doing it because you have so much guilt for not doing it. And kids could feel this too. Like, I should clean my room because my mom is going to be really upset with me if I don't. It's different than I have to clean my room or else I can't go out on a play date. Okay. So next is identified. And this is starting to get to the point where a child is gaining a little bit more autonomy, which we're going to come back and talk about in a little bit. But this is someone saying, I choose to do this because it matters to me. So it might be, I choose to use these neuroaffirming strategies in sessions because it matters to me, or I choose to train the team on neuroaffirming approaches because this is something that matters to me. And that's really something that becomes part of a person's identity. So the next one is integrated, which is getting to the point of you saying, I do this because this is part of who I am. So I use neuroaffirming approaches because I'm a neuroaffirming therapist. This is part of me. So this is just part of who I am. This is what I'm doing. And this is the same thing with kids as they start to identify with different activities, different loves and passions, and start to think that this is part of who I am. And we're going to talk about how you can use that to your benefit when you are in therapy as well. Okay. And then at the very end is intrinsic motivation, which is our big goal, which is actual enjoyment that comes from doing the thing. Chris might say, I give Jessie back massages because I genuinely enjoy giving her back massages.
She really wants a back massage. She tied that in there twice.
You see, just wait for the declarative language coming later. So this is something, and we really want to focus tonight on the how, not just the why and the what. So we want to make sure that you guys are getting tools that you can walk away with and start to use immediately. And what we teach is 6 different areas that we want to start thinking about in order to get our kids more intrinsically motivated. So tonight we are going to be covering 3 of these pit stops, we like to call them. And I will show you the first one, autonomy. So our very first idea we want to think about is if we want our kids to be more intrinsically motivated, we need to give them more autonomy. Tell
That's
us about it,
Yeah,
Christopher.
yeah. So it doesn't mean zero structure. It doesn't mean just go do whatever you want and have full reign over thing. It means choice. So being able to have like, I'll give you an example of maybe a teacher in a class. If there was a class project, the student would be able to have a choice of how they wanted to demonstrate their knowledge of it. So maybe it was creating a comic, maybe it was presenting a Google slide, maybe it was creating a 90-second TikTok or reel or YouTube short, maybe it's doing a one-page written story about it. There's a variety of ways. So choice, that's just one example. Another is having your voice, being able to have some input. I think that's huge because all too often, sometimes as providers and as parents, we end up thinking that we know exactly what the kid wants or needs, but we tend to not actually reach out and get their input. And so that ties into that intrinsic motivation as well, being able to have some input yourself, right? Think about it. If you go to therapy yourself, you want to be able to have that conversation and give some input. Here's what I feel like I want to work on. You know what I mean? And then the last one, meaningful participation. So being able to have something that is not coming from a compliance based selected by somebody else, but having that meaningful interaction and participating in your own your own session, your own therapy, your own whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah, so just because people like to hear the research, and if you guys are here live, you are getting a bunch of research. So we will go ahead and put the links to that in the chat as well. But you're going to get a bunch of research so that when you have people who are like, but reward systems work and here's how we need them, don't worry, because all the stuff we're covering tonight, plus more, you're going to be getting a handout of a lot of great research that you can cite about why this is so important. But in terms of, I know that so many times reward systems are being used in schools, which is why we like to give you a lot of information on how to help with that. But autonomous motivation is a strong positive predictor of achievement. So kids who have more autonomy in their learning are more likely to do better in school. Okay, so there's one great piece of information that you could take with you. And students with teachers who support this type of learning show higher intrinsic motivation, confidence, self-esteem. So it's really shown to help kids in many different kinds of ways when they are given autonomy in an academic setting. So if we think back to this motivation continuum we're looking at, now what we have on here is below the type is the amount of autonomy that is provided. So what you can see is that when we have kids or people who are on the more side of having external rewards and extrinsic motivation, that is highly controlled by someone else, right? So when it's the I have to do this, that is controlled by someone else. That is someone else's decision. And you're saying, I have to do this because it was this person's decision. The I should do this is also highly controlled by someone else because that person is putting that to do on you, is creating you to have this feeling of I should do this. So it's not until you get to this identified, integrated, and intrinsic that you really see a person starting to gain more autonomy over decisions. So identified, having a moderate amount of autonomy, integrated, very high level. And then intrinsic is full autonomy, 100% um, by the person, enjoyment, and satisfied in the activity. So this is something that, is, gosh, I want to say relatively easy to introduce in sessions, but I just think that it depends on your sessions. It depends on the structures and systems in place in schools and all of that. And, but here, at least, like I could speak to the clinic maybe, and then you could speak more to the schools. But for us, when we have kids come in, we don't need to pre-select the games. We don't need to pre-plan, here's the order and here's what we're going to do. I know that therapists do love a plan, so this is something that's very hard for them to move away from. But allowing students to select what activities they're doing, the order of the activities, I've always said that as therapists, we should know our kids so well and we should know their goals so well that it really doesn't matter what they choose. And this is probably something that you do a lot in groups too, but what we do here in groups is we just let the kids come in and have a conversation and start to decide what they want to do and compromise and do all of that.
Yeah, and in the schools, it's pretty much the same where if we have a warm-up activity or we have like a whole library of board games, card games, or whatever it is, I usually will, offer those choices. Sometimes I'll just leave things out as mentioned here on the second bullet point. So when the students enter into session, they kind of will gravitate towards the thing that it is that they're wanting to do. Sometimes I'll purposely put things away and then I'll just have a couple items that are out and see what it is that they gravitate towards. Maybe it's like a cutting and pasting type activity at this table. Over at this table, it's a puzzle, or over at this table, it's those Minecraft magnetic blocks. And then over at this table, there's a couple choices between apples to apples or Jenga. And then we can tie in whatever the language target is. So we're really building in on having that choice, having the interest from the student, so it's intrinsically motivating for them, while also aligning it with whatever goals that we have created.
Yeah, so a lot of this piece is just trying to move away from the giving directions constantly, telling them what to do constantly, and, you know, starting to use declarative language, for example, would be a great way to just small shifts in your language can make a really big difference instead of you guys should really do that activity today, or we're going to do this activity today. I wonder what activity that we should do today. Or like, I'm noticing that John is interested in Jenga over there, and just
Right. Yeah.
bringing that into your sessions can make a big difference.
Right, absolutely. I love that. Yeah, and even sometimes reflection, like I feel like last session worked really well when we worked at the table over here with a game, and I'm wondering other people's thoughts in the group of what we want to do today, or if there's any choices or options that anybody would like to give some input with. So that way we're providing the voice, we're providing the choice, and then that all ties into that autonomy. And then it's that meaningful participation. So following that idea, fairly recently, I have a student who tends to he had a history of heavy use of reward system, which all it did was it created more dysregulation. So it wasn't uncommon for there to be both verbal and physical aggression, some spitting, and then there was some running out of the class. And sometimes outside of the class, it was like trying to jump the gate. A constant, really high arousal of nervous system fight, flight. And so what we did was we were using some AI and we used like a Mad Lib story to where there was some choice because I said, hey, bud, today we've got a couple different options. You don't have to do any of them if you don't want. My last group, we worked on making up our own story, and it was a story about Dracula. So our school did a Dracula play where some of the students were in the play. And this particular student was like, I want to do that. I want to create a story on my own. I said, okay. So we kind of narrated it. I narrated it. And there were some Mad Lib fill in the blanks of verbs, nouns, and some funny locations and places. As we went through, the story was about Dracula driving a Tesla. And he got to choose his animals, a dog sitting outside of the Tesla that was a friendly dog. And I said, within the story, it was like, where did Dracula want to go to eat? And he was like, Chick-fil-A. I'm like, yeah, man, I love Chick-fil-A. So does Dracula. I thought he liked blood, but it turns out he likes chicken nuggets. Right? I'm all extra ketchup. So then we created an image, but the whole idea of building choice, building options, building voice, tying in meaningful participation, his own creation to show mastery of what his IEP goals and language targets were. All of it was a success. This was a 30-minute session, and the outcome and the result was great because not only did he laugh and love the humor and was highly engaged and intrinsically motivated, but then it became a thing of, hey, Mr. Winger, well, when are we going to do speech again? I'm like, dude, it's only been an hour since you've not been in my office, but we're on a once a week deal here. But you know what I mean? It's like he wanted to continue doing these types of activities. And historically, he was, if you were to read through past IEPs, it was just labeled with defiance, constant disruption, constant outbursts, constant physical and physical aggression, verbal aggression towards staff, towards peers. And then it was just plastered with stacks of behavior intervention plans that never solved or helped because it never got to the root of what the need was for the student, which was remove the heavy use of external rewards. Let's build on intrinsic motivation and create a system that feels safe for the student. And when we did that, there were no behavior problems because we didn't need a behavior intervention plan because we were building on these types of things. Now, following up, this was a speech session. So the idea here is to use some declarative language with the staff members, with the one-to-one aid, with the paraprofessionals, which was, hey, I'm wondering if, so I'm not, giving a compliance or a demand, but I'm wondering if we slowly started to push away some of these reward systems in class and started offering a variety of choices of how the student wants to present the work. Handwriting for this student was dysregulating to the point where if you could just remove that one thing where he can dictate or use technology, it solved a lot. But I mention these things because it wasn't just exclusive to the speech session within that 30-minute, 1 hour session. It was something that can be extended beyond the therapy walls, right? But it's just a matter of mind shift. It's a matter of shifting our mind and approach. And so that was exactly how we took a curveball and we swung and we hit a home run. That's it.
Love that. And creepy. Do you see his cape coming out of the car? That was a nice touch.
Oh, that actually is a Tesla Sun cover. No, I'm just kidding.
It's an upgrade.
It's an upgrade for $5 million. If you guys want one.
So next, what we have on the motivation map is a visit over to this next pit stop of special interest. So how can we use the areas that the child is really passionate about and loves to facilitate learning? And this is such a good one and interesting one because we know that if you've ever been in a situation where you have been doing something that you just absolutely love, you get into that deep flow state where it's almost like there's no sense of time and you just feel like you're in it. And us being able to use interests of our students is helpful because we can get them into more of this creative, deep flow state where they are truly enjoying spending the time there with us. We know that if we can use special interests with kids, then we can improve social connections. We know that a lot of friendships come when people have similar interests, and that's something that we really want to be able to build on with our students. It can build on identity. A lot of people, the interests that they have really become part of their identity, and they start to, again, continue to create friendships based on that identity that they've formed. And this is one thing I just wish more teachers. Okay, I've never been a teacher. I know you have, I have not. But this is just one thing I wish that teachers would understand is that whatever they're teaching that's educational, it just becomes immediately more relevant. It could be immediately more meaningful to students if they are including somehow the things that the kids are actually interested in. And something else cool about special interests is that oftentimes a person's special interests really help feed into their personal strengths or vice versa, where someone spends so much time doing something that is of interest to them that they become really good at doing that thing. And then it kind of becomes this like positive feedback loop of like, oh, I love this thing. I'm also getting better at this thing. So I'm going to keep doing this thing and then continue to get better at this thing. So there's a lot of great research too, like so much on why we should include kids' interests in everything that we are doing when it comes to education. And the thing that this research, there's some research here by Grove in 2016 that showed that oftentimes for autistic individuals specifically, having a special interest is not just like a leisure activity. It's not just here's how I spend my time, but it is so deeply motivating to them. So it's not just like, oh, I think I've got some free time. I'm going to go do this. But it is something that really is so deeply motivating to them. We know that a lot of people have, again, these identity shifts that come that are tied to their special interests as well. Lots of great research. These are 3 different studies below that show how much special interests improve someone's emotional well-being. It decreases their stress and anxiety, supports their self-regulation. I think we have it's old now, but we have an entire episode of our show on all of the benefits of utilizing special interests with our students as well. So that is a huge one that we want to think about. So there's this boy that we have been seeing in our clinic for a long time. And this was a boy who came in and I'd almost put him in that amotivation category because of his past of extreme compliance-based therapies to the point where he was coming into sessions and it was just like wandering around, like going back to the motivation continuing of that. What's the point? It kind of felt like that with him, that it was like, well, what's the point? Like, I'm going to do whatever they're going to make me do anyway. But it took a really long time for us to break that cycle. Let us know in the chat if you know what I'm talking about, where you're like, I've got to break the cycle because I have this kid who's expecting me to be this compliance-based, adult-directed, tasky kind of therapist. And I'm just trying to help them understand that I'm just here for them. I'm just here to make sure that they have a good time and want to connect with them. And for this boy, what helped so much was he had different interests in shows. And this was one, it was like an older cartoon that he was really into. So we just started creating our entire sessions based on this old cartoon that he loved. And it was not something I'd ever heard of. So I was learning something new every session. And we would come into the gym, which is where we are, and we would pull up on YouTube different clips from the show. And he would show me the different characters. And then we would now you can nowadays you can use ChatGPT to make a coloring page, but we would have to search for the coloring pages of the characters. We would make up songs about these characters, and that's where I really saw him make that switch from having intrinsic motivation to be there. And we really built a strong connection on this because he was like, hey, I'm coming here. I'm doing something I enjoy. And she enjoys learning from me. And we built this really great connection. And it resulted in him improving so much in his language, which is what he was there to do. All right. Our last stop of the night
No.
is until the bar. This will be the last step.
Those are the last.
Is how we can use connection and belonging and why connection and belonging is so important when we are trying to improve or build a child's intrinsic motivation.
Yeah, absolutely. So I really want to kind of step back on the difference between fitting in versus belonging. So fitting in is where you are trying to do your best to either dress the part, say the thing, laugh at the jokes, to fit in and essentially hide who you really are. And over time, that just becomes so exhausting and you burn yourself out. Belonging is where you're actually connecting and people want you there as part of the group. You want to be part of the group. So connection and belonging is huge for that intrinsic motivation piece, right? it decreases stress. So when you wake up in the morning and you have a sense of belonging, you have that motivation to want to go to school because you know that you at least have somebody that, or you at least feel like you're belonging as part of the class or part of the group or part of the therapy session or whatever it might be, right? So when you have that sense of belonging, it increases participation. It helps the prefrontal cortex really build those um, thoughts and language and all of those good things. I had a student who was a freshman and historically, just an IEP again, was just mentioning like very quiet, shy, doesn't want to really be participating in groups or anything like that. And then I met the student, and the student was, sharing like, no, I'm fine. And I was feeling like historically, because of the level of difficulty that this child might have had in elementary school of trying to fit in and trying to be parts of groups and it just not working, have led to some trauma, and over time just being like, you know what, I'm better off just doing things on my own. Over time, in a fairly quickly amount of time, um, after noticing that the student would sit below some stairs at lunch, I was like, man, I don't know. I just don't know if this is something that child really wants, So I would introduce like another student to the group, and then we would have a group of two, but there was no pressure to talk. It's always my rule. You don't have to worry about making eye contact. Nobody is going to be forced to answer questions. We're just going to make this fun and chill. We played a game called Break the Safe. It's kind of a collaborative game and a lot of fun, especially for older kids like middle and high school. And you are either all together working on solving the way to break the safe, essentially, or you all lose together. But anyway, the session went really well. Some communication going, some group building, and these two students were like so happy, like just like the other student I mentioned. When speech again, I want to come back. And then I had another student. So it ended up becoming a group of three. And we would extend beyond that. Sometimes we would play Jenga and just have conversations or bounce off. And what ended up happening was that that student had ended up kind of no longer being underneath the stairs. He had someone to sit with at lunch. And that person, that particular student, had a couple other students that were real similar in the way that they communicate and just the way that they belong together, right? Similar neurotypes, that whole double empathy problem thing came to fruition. So that one student joined a couple students, which built that sense of belonging and part of the group. And then as the years went on, that freshman year, this is just a couple of years ago, senior year, they all had each other's numbers and they were going to grad night together out to Universal Studios. I arranged it so they could all be on the same bus together with a teacher that they knew. And it was just so cool to just see, that connection and that sense of belonging. I think that everybody needs that. That's like such a huge factor on success for some of these students in school, just connecting with somebody, a sense of belonging.
Yeah, you really talked about these things too. And then you even touched on this, which is so many of our kids, like especially after years of being in the schools, just have that history of being othered and not really having someone and not feeling like they fit in. And it's never too late, like you did for kids in high school, to be able to have that. So, um, the other thing is that this idea of belonging really has the ability, us being able to create the sense of belonging can bring a child from this place of extrinsic motivation over the belonging bridge that we created into a place of intrinsic motivation. And just thinking about these core components at the bottom, having a sense of connection. Like if a child is in a classroom and feels like this teacher gets me, or this other student gets me, these people understand me, that is something that is going to increase their sense of belonging. If they feel safe to show up as themselves, did they feel safe to be able to be their authentic self with these people? That's going to increase their sense of belonging. If they feel like they're respected, that their opinions are valued, that the way that they're communicating is valued, if they have a sense of trust built with others and they know what to expect in these situations. They don't go in like scared of the unpredictability, not knowing what these relationships are going to be like. All of these things can really foster a sense of belonging and be able to get a child to be intrinsically motivated. If you think about a kid in a classroom, feeling othered, feeling alone, feeling like I'm only in class because I have to be in class, versus a child feeling like I'm in class because I have a couple of good friends in this class, or even just we always talk about one good friend in this class where I feel like I'm connected to this person, then they could be intrinsically motivated to be there. And I was thinking about, I don't know if I ever told you this story. I volunteered at a shelter in downtown LA, and we showed up there and they divided all of us into sections of what we're going to be cooking that day. Okay, so this shelter had 3 meal times for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So it was like women, men, and then women, and then families or something like that. Okay. So then they said, okay. And they pointed to me and 2 other people that I was there with, friends of mine. And they said, okay, you guys are responsible for cutting the onions. Okay. I'm not exaggerating. We had to cut onions for 9 meals for a day. And I'm not the, I can like I can't even be in the house when Chris cuts onions. That's how hard it is for me. And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to be torture. But it ended up being something where we were in there and we were just crying the whole day. Me and these 2 other friends crying. But it was like so funny and enjoyable that we were together, this sense of belonging of like, I cannot believe the 3 of us got put to do this. And it truly was intrinsically motivating to be there because it was now about the belonging. It was about the connection that we had and the enjoyment that we were having, as opposed to anything else that we were doing. But never again. Never again.
That is hilarious. And I know that too with your sensitivity with onions. I don't have one. My eyes are usually pretty good, but anyway. Yeah, fostering a sense of belonging. So, as I mentioned, those collaborative games, like the Break the Safe game, I don't know if you could get it, probably on eBay for if you want to get it for like $600. Uh, you know how they do that? It's like, oh man, I don't even know if eBay's still around, but anyway, maybe Facebook Marketplace or something. Um, Collaborative games. So you've got many board games. I like games by Peaceable Kingdom. You could get a lot of those on Amazon. Peaceable Kingdom are really cool. And then these are some digital online things that you can kind of mess around with and see what works for you. I'd have to dive into more tutorials on those if I were going to expand on it. But those are some ideas. But definitely check out on Amazon. Type in Peaceable Kingdoms, and there's games like Hoot Owl Hoot, Friends and Neighbors. Cauldron Quest is really cool. Race to the Treasure and Outfoxed. Those are going to be some good ones.
I like that because then it's not just my turn, your turn.
Right. No, it's definitely not that. It's great too because you can really trellis it down to meet some of the students who might have some more significant needs, or you can make it to where the levels of challenge are much more difficult, language targets, all sorts of things. And there is a sense of belonging. I have every day I work with students. The goal really is to build on that intrinsic motivation. And so this is a group of my students that have more higher support needs that would um, historically may have had more use of behavior charts on the class, check in where you're at on the green and the blues and the whatever, or reward systems. But we don't have that. Everyone is built on a system of intrinsic motivation and having fun together and building self-advocacy skills, problem-solving skills, identifying safety, learning about boundaries and consent, and all of the good things that entail life in growth.
Yep, love that. So, just kind of summarizing some of these things that we have talked about so far, talked about the difference between extrinsic, intrinsic motivation. We introduced you guys to this idea of the motivation continuum so that we could think about how much autonomy we are giving depending on where we are on that continuum. We talked about 3 of the different pit stops for how to increase intrinsic motivation in kids. We talked about how to give more autonomy, how to incorporate special interests into play. We talked about how to create more connection and belonging in our sessions and the settings that we're in. And if you want to learn the other 3 pit stops of this motivation map, it is available to you in the NeuroAffirm Academy. If you are in there with us, then you will get access to it. It will be in there ready for you right now. And we also have an additional training that we did on this where we do talk about all 6 areas as well, in case you want to learn more about that. So if you are not yet in the NeuroAffirm Academy, we would love to see you in there, and stay tuned. 1 minute, I'm going to be sharing 2 huge updates that we have for you. So if you're in the Academy, you still want to stay on and hear this. And if you're not, you're definitely going to want to hear this as well. A couple of really cool, new and exciting things coming your way. The NeuroAffirm Academy is meant to be your one-stop shop for everything you need to be a neuroaffirming therapist. So right now we have on-demand trainings in there. We have CEUs available for some of them. We have live calls with our autistic mentor every month. And then we have this awesome online community. This is the largest community of neuroaffirming SLPs that exist. And we would absolutely love to have you in there with us because it makes such a big difference when we have more therapists. Our goal is every SLP that is neurodiversity affirming, we want to be in there with us. So we have 2 new, very exciting updates in the Academy. The first, which is dropping right now, is our NeuroAffirm Audio Hub. So we know that people are starting to get a little bit burnout sometimes on video trainings and making the time to sit down and watch video trainings, but many of us are at the gym, we are commuting, we are taking walks, and we want to make sure that these trainings are available to you when you are not sitting in front of a computer. So we now have a private audio feed where you can access all of our trainings. And we are going to be continuing to put new trainings in there as well. And basically, it's just a podcast. It will come into your podcast app, and it's super easy. It's like literally 1 click to get it on your phone. And then every time we drop a new training, it's just going to come right up to your phone, just like it would for any other podcast. So we're really excited to be bringing that to you. And then this next thing we have coming out in the beginning of the year is something which means so much to me. And Chris has seen how much work has already gone into this, which was created because many of you have said, but we want to see more. Anytime we present and we speak or we create courses, everyone always says their favorite part is seeing client videos. Their favorite part is seeing like the real life examples, and they want to know, okay, I get the philosophy now. You're giving us the trainings. You're telling us how to do it. Now I want some activity ideas. I want some inspiration for materials. I want to know what I can actually be doing in my sessions. And that's why we have created the NeuroAffirm video library. So this is the first ever video collection of a bunch of neuroaffirming therapy clips. These are real sessions. These are real kids. These are examples of what therapy sessions can look like when you're neuroaffirming. All of these videos are very short and easy to watch. They're not like 1-hour sessions or 30-minute sessions. They are 1 to 3 minute clips, which are going to be pieced together from sessions. And you are going to see what it is that we are doing, what the goals are that we are working on, what the materials are that we are using in case it's something that you want to recreate. And so far, we have it divided up based on age. So right now we have from toddler through late elementary. Those are our current ages. We have plans to expand, but as of now, that is what we have in there. So super excited to be releasing that. It is quite the labor of love, I will say, but we know that you guys really want to be able to see what neuroaffirming therapy looks like, which is why we wanted to be able to create this for you. And we're just hoping that it gets into the hands of more professionals and more even students who are training so that we can get therapists using more neuroaffirming strategies sooner. So because we are adding so many valuable resources and we have even more that we have not released yet or talked about yet, the price of our academy is going to be doubling after this week. So if you have not yet gotten in at the founding member price, which is $97 a year, okay, an entire year for all the continuing ed you need and all of the training you need, I highly recommend getting in now because it's going to be going up. It is so much value in there for 97 bucks a month. And so make sure to get in now.
Yeah, and you know what? I really want to emphasize too, the community part of it is so cool because if there's ever questions or you want to connect with others that are like-minded, you can easily do that. Like it's that sense of belonging, right? So it's joining in a massive network of other people who are like-minded that share the same passions and want to help support our kids as best possible. And uh, as far as I know, there's nothing else out there that actually has sessions where you can view. It's like you could get content and read things, but don't you want to get the visual? Don't you want to see it? And none other than myself and Jesse to host those things and to bring it in to really give what we talk about an image and a visual so you can go, oh, there we go. There's some actual kids with some of these approaches and we are seeing it in action. I think that's huge.
Yeah, so we will drop that link below and we would love to see you guys in there. And just these are kind of the big questions that we get. So we're happy to answer more questions as well. But right now we wanted to answer a few of these, which is number one question is who is it for? Which is the Academy was designed for SLPs. We do have some other professionals in there, maybe some parents in there, but for the most part, it's SLPs. We are totally fine with other professionals coming in, but we just like to be transparent and say that we are coming from an SLP background and the trainings that we are creating are created from that perspective. So most of the topics that we talk about, or a lot of them, are related to, speech sessions. So a lot of people want to know about getting ASHA CEUs in there. We do have some courses in there that are available for ASHA CEUs. That has also been a labor of love that on your part.
That's right.
And
Really cool to have that option.
but very cool and more to come on that as well. We have live calls there every month. Usually they are on Fridays and they are always recorded in case you can't make it live and they get uploaded immediately after. They're with Chloe Estelle, who's the autistic mentor in our program, who's so incredible. I've known her now for years. I don't know, maybe like 5 years or more at this point. And she's such a wealth of knowledge and really, really cool way to, like Chris mentioned, be able to connect with the community as well. So in the academy, we have lots of different topics that are covered. I'm going to list as many as I can remember, but we talk about strategies for building emotional regulation. We have a module on sensory. We have a module on goals and assessment. We have one on AAC. We have one on building total communication. So we talk about AAC. We talk about Gestalt language. We talk about understanding autism and the autistic perspective. And I'm sure there's more that I'm missing, but basically we're trying to give you trainings in all the areas that you would need in order to be neuroaffirming. And there's lots of resources in there as well. So with every training, you're also going to be getting resources that come with that training.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was going to mention too that the community, when they give input, like, hey, we would like to talk about this. We did a live call to talk about PDA, pathological demand avoidance. And then we are sharing that information with, listening in on what people want. So that's a pretty cool element of it as well.
Yeah, our goal is really to bring as many therapists together as possible. And the more therapists who join, the more that we are able to grow it, develop it, create trainings, and build this really incredible community. So it is a steal, I will say, at 97 bucks for an entire year. So grab that. We would love to see you in there. And we just want to say thank you for joining us tonight. We hope you learned some new stuff about motivation.
Yeah.
And
Hop in there, get it now. It's less than a tank of gas, and it'll get you connected to the community. So thanks again for attending. We appreciate. We hope you found this educational. Until next time, my friends.
bye.